Coach. We've reached the knockout stages. We've talked a little bit about penalties with Gianluigi Donnarumma and with your goalkeeper Jan Sommer. Switzerland won and lost a shootout in the last European Championships. With those shootouts in mind, how have your preparations gone for a potential penalty shootout tomorrow night?
Ja, wir hatten genug Zeit diese Woche, auch mal im Trainingseinheiten die Elfmeter zu üben.
We've had time this week to train and work on penalties as well. Everyone has taken a penalty in training. We've jotted down some notes. Of course, it's not the same thing taking a penalty on the training ground as opposed to taking one in a match situation with all of the pressure that pertains to that. But we do have the necessary experience to take on penalties. To be honest, I don't want to go to penalties. I hope we can win the game prior to that. Because penalties are a lottery. And we know it's not particularly nice thing to go through. But yes, we have trained on that as well, and we hope that if we go to penalties, we can win the match. Good evening. A lot has been made about the dialogue in the Italy dressing room with Luciano Spalletti talking about tactics and how to mix things up, etc. I know in the last few months you have spoken to Granit Xhaka, your captain, in terms of how to put together the squad. How have you dealt with that?
Schauen Sie, also das ist eine alte Geschichte und es ist eine Minderheit der Journalisten, die etwas
Look, that's all water under the bridge.
Aber Granit und ich haben ein perfektes Verhältnis.
There were journalists who overdid, blew out of proportion what actually went on. There was no issue between me and Granit Xhaka. If that weren't the case, then we certainly wouldn't have the relationship we currently enjoy. We're both players with a winning mentality, and we want to win every game that we're involved in as individuals. And we're both individuals who are people who always think about the best of the national team first and foremost, what's best for Switzerland. What was written doesn't matter a great deal. I'm very focused on how we can win the game tomorrow night, not on what's being written in the press. Good evening, Murat. What lessons have you learned from the round of 16 tie you played against Portugal at the Qatar World Cup? These are two different tournaments. One is the World Cup and the other the Euro. And we're here at the Euro. I'm not particularly interested in what went on in the past. I'm a lot more interested in what needs to occur on the pitch tomorrow night. I can have a greater impact on that. We're in the hunt this season, this year, and we've shown that many times against strong opposition sides. We've prepared very well against the three teams that we knew that we'd play in the group stage. We prepared well for those matches. We've produced some good performances, and we have had time to prepare for those three games, but we've also had a full week of training for the Italy game. Everyone is available for selection in the squad. There's no one who's ill or injured. There's an excellent mood in the camp, and we have really fought hard to make it thus far, and we can't wait to get out there and play against Italy. This match has already been played in World Cup qualifying. We were able to come out on top in those two ties. It's a fresh chapter in this rivalry between Italy and Switzerland, and I'll be delighted to be able to share that with the fans that will be cheering us on tomorrow. Good evening, Murat. If we think back to the game in Rome, where Switzerland qualified for the 2022 World Cup, that was probably one of the best performances of your time in charge. Can you draw any inspiration from that match? have you prepared for this game in a similar fashion? And what have you learnt from your previous meetings with Italy in recent times?
Immer das wichtigste und schönste Erlebnis. Also ich bin seit knapp 20 Jahren Trainer und werde immer jedes Jahr danach gefragt, welches war das schönste.
I'm always asked whether that was the most exciting moment of my coaching career thus far. When I look back, over the last 20 years of my coaching career, every year they actually say whether that's the best time of my coaching career. But it was a positive moment. I hope we can experience something similar tomorrow night. We have fought very hard to make it here. These are special games. We're preparing in a special way, and year in, year out with the Switzerland national team, there are some very exciting, interesting games, apart from maybe last year, where our performances weren't necessarily always up to scratch because we actually struggled to qualify for Euro 2024. We're now very happy to play against Italy as our next opponents. It'll be a very open game. I don't necessarily want to be drawn on who the favourite is for this game. It's such an important match. Italy are a neighbouring country. We know them well. We know all about their temper, their tactics, their quality. So it will certainly be a special game tomorrow night. And we hope that it can pan out the same way as our previous meetings. Good evening, Murat. You've already said that there have been some good times already at Euro 2024. You have impressed with the sides that you've picked, but now you won't have Sylvain Widmer available for selection. So how do you plan to replace him? And how do you plan to set up the team? Are you going to give that another evening's thought? There will be some changes, and that's only natural regardless of the suspension. Fortunately, we don't have any injured players, but when you have games in quick succession, it's only natural there will be changes to team selection. We've prepared as best we can. The entire squad is available, and we have some substitutes who are ready to step in. We don't yet know who's going to start. We've looked at two possible game plans, which will allow us to play as best we can tomorrow night. In terms of the starting 11, there won't be wholesale changes, particularly in terms of shape and formation. The opposition have already changed their shape and formation. We don't want to change the way we do things, our approach to the game. We have made it thus far with our intensity, a solid defence, this shape, and our quick counters, and that's what we'll try and do tomorrow again.
Buonasera, mister Iucca, calciomercato.it.
Good evening. I wanted to focus on an individual player. A lot has been said about Dan Doy, who scored a goal. He didn't score too many at Bologna this season. A lot's been made of him in terms of rumours in the transfer market. He's been linked with Inter. Do you think Dan Doy is ready for the step up to play at a club like Inter? I don't know whether you've spoken to him about it, whether he's asked your advice about where he should move next in his career.
Also zuerst mal, seine Entwicklung ist etwas vom Schönsten, was ich jetzt erleben darf. Ich habe letztes Jahr in Rumänien mit der U21 EM erlebt, live erlebt.
It's wonderful the way Dan Doy is developing as a player. And I've seen that close at hand, both from his time with the under-21s. He's come on leaps and bounds. I think it was an excellent decision to move to Bologna. He's become a starter there. I even went to see him in Bologna, and he had an injury for a short time over the course of the season. But despite that, he was able to win his place back in the starting 11. Dan is a young player, and we're delighted to have an unpredictable player like him in our squad. He's got no hang-ups. He plays with a lot of freedom. He's got pace. And that goal against Germany certainly allowed him to get up and running mentally as well. I don't know whether he's experienced enough or whether he's mature enough. That's not for me to say.
genug.
But we can't be talking about transfer rumours. We're focused on this game against Italy in the knockout rounds. That requires all of our strength and focus, every last detail. And Dan will decide what's best for him. He needs to decide whether it's now the time to make that move. It's not for me to decide.
Nach dem Spiel gegen Deutschland haben Sie gesagt, dass Leonidas Tergio sich vorbereiten darf, weil ist der normale Ersatz für Sylvain Widmer.
Leonidas Tergio needs to prepare, as you said, because he's the natural replacement for Widmer. Have you changed your opinion on him? Because you said there are two alternatives to replace Widmer. Yes, it's nice to have several options. That's a positive. Leonidas is an option. He's an excellent alternative that we could look at tomorrow.
Das Scamacca-Goal, das Tor gegen Kroatien, wie hast du das gesehen und wie würdest du Scamacca als Spielertyp beschreiben?
Und nicht nur jetzt in der Nationalmannschaft.
Did you see the goal against Croatia? And how would you describe Scamacca as a player? Gianluca Scamacca has a crucial role at Atalanta. He's a strong, powerful target man who holds the ball up. He lays it off with his back to goal. He's very physical. He's a complete striker. He's very good defensively as well. He gets around the pitch. And I hope that tomorrow we'll be able to keep tabs with him, that our defenders will be able to keep him quiet, but he's a very exciting, complete striker.
Paolo Tomaselli per il Corriere della Sera, volevo chiederle se lei ha capito come gioca questa
Good
Italia.
evening.
L'Italia si aspetta.
Have you figured out how Italy play, what sort of Italy side you're expecting, because they've mixed things up a lot in terms of personnel and shape so far? What Italy side are you expecting tomorrow night?
Auf jeden Fall haben wir unsere Aufgaben gemacht, nicht nur die 3 Spiele, auch vorher alle Spiele angeschaut.
Yes, we've done our homework. We haven't only looked at these 3 games, we've also studied Italy's previous matches prior to the tournament. But we've always been struck by how Italy can mix things up in terms of personnel and shape. We're ready for Italy's alternatives. We're familiar with Italy. Italy is the home of tactical football. I really like the way they do things. And they defend as a team, they defend as a unit. Italy are one of the teams that man-mark all over the pitch, 11 against 11. There aren't too many teams that do so. Atalanta do so in Serie A. It's fairly typical of Italian domestic sides. We're ready for that. But I want to focus more on how we're going to set up, on our tactics, on our shape, so that we can control the opposition and maybe even catch them off guard.